So, are we some kind of Thunder Squad?
Ohai movies.
YouTube channels and strong opinions in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Name a more iconic duo. So it's my turn to get officially baptized because Sinners isn't out yet in my area at the time of recording this. Before I get to Thunderbolts proper, cards on the table. I've been a total casual to the MCU and superhero movies as a whole till now. Mainly, I watched the various cartoon adaptations growing up and thought the early live-action stuff like Bryan Singer's X-Men or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was absolutely mind-blowing back in its day. Later years have seen me actually read the comics and I unironically appreciate a lot of it, but I'm not gonna pretend to be some expert, alright? With the MCU proper, the real main draw for me was Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Whatever you can say about these movies, Tony Stark is fun as hell, and the meta redemption arc that he's been through is one for the ages. Really though, aside from notable exceptions like Ryan Coogler's Black Panther and James Gunn's brilliant Guardians of the Galaxy, there has been a certain lack of vision plaguing the MCU series for me. That's deeply ironic because executive producer Kevin Feige and his crew have had no lack of vision in planning out these damn things for almost 2 decades now. There is no small amount of talent and sheer planning involved to make all of these disparate genres, fantasy, science fiction, historical, what have you, connect into something even moderately coherent. My issue is not an original one, and it's that this is cinematic fast food. Going to almost any given Marvel movie, you know you're in for a good bit of action, a good bit of comedy, and maybe a couple obligatory moments of pathos. And you know what? I haven't seen all of them, but I also gotta say I've never seen an MCU film that I've outright hated. Forgettable ones to be sure, but outright irredeemably horrible? Nah. Probably the worst one I've ever seen was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the worst thing I can say about that one was that I literally can't remember much about it. An inoffensive 6 out of 10 Sunday afternoon time waster. They are absolutely cinematic fast food. Guess what? Fast food sells, and not because it sucks. Sometimes you just want that cheap comfort. And hell, sometimes that cheap comfort can be pretty damn tasty. Infinity War and Endgame were legitimately epic and super fun movies, both as cultural touchstones as just a good time at the movies. You laugh, you cry, you cheer, you pump your fist, you go yay. Again, I know I'm not being original when I say that Endgame was where it stopped for me. The last non-Guardians MCU flick I saw was Wakanda Forever back in 2022, and I've more or less avoided it since. Wakanda Forever wasn't the worst thing ever, but I hated how it felt like I was being asked to subscribe to Disney Plus all the time, which I never have and almost certainly never will. Sorry, Ruby. On that point, I have not bothered with any of the TV series. I'm okay with checking it to cinema every few months to see what's up. I am way less okay with hours upon hours of TV streaming homework. Thankfully, Thunderbolts is well aware of the Marvel fatigue. It deliberately tells a pared-down, self-contained tale that really only requires you to know that the Avengers are no more following the events of Endgame. I understand there was some groundwork laid in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I haven't seen it, and I still had no problem getting caught up to speed thanks to some snappy expository dialogue. Though I sometimes do wish they had those little yellow text captions showing what issue they're referring to so I can go back and watch them whenever I feel like it. The story itself opens with Yelena, adoptive sister of ScarJo's Black Widow and daughter to Soviet wash-up Red Guardian, doing some cleanup work at a secret lab that's housed off of Malaysia's tallest building for some reason. Following a narrow escape and a new pet guinea pig, she decides that she wants a change from doing undercover work and asks her diabolic CIA boss, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by delightfully devilish Julie Louis-Dreyfus, for a more public-facing role. Cut to De Fontaine dealing with an impeachment hearing and deciding to send Yelena to a totally not sus remote location for a teensy-weensy tiny final favor. This also predictably leads to those other surviving loose ends, US agent John Walker, Ava Ghost Star, and an amnesiac known simply as Bob, deciding to band together with Yelena and work against De Fontaine. Circumstances find them also having the ragtag team joined by Bucky Barnes, aka fan favorite The Winter Soldier, and the Red Guardian, aka the Dendy to Captain America's Nintendo. The setup of a group of anti-heroes trying to do genuine goodwill while still being sort of surly jerks does evoke Suicide Squad. Though in practice, due to its emphasis on pathos and interpersonal dynamics over sheer action spectacle, the actual presentation has more in common with Guardians of the Galaxy. Directed by Waverly Films alum Jake Schreier, I got the sense throughout that, on a meta level, Feige is basically on his knees, trying to keep his cool, but still begging the audience, hey wait, look, I know James Gunn is gone, but we can still do quirky humanistic tales while still giving lots of jokes and explosions. Please baby, stay. Though, he does keep his cool. It feels less like a blatant ripoff and more like a loving cover to a good song. To that end, the core story is by Marvel veteran Eric Pearson, whose script was reworked by Lee Sung-jin and Joanna Kahlo of Beef fame. Kahlo, also interestingly enough, has some writing credits on BoJack Horseman. Appropriately enough for a former BoJack Horseman writer, the real main antagonist of the movie is, ready for mild spoilers? Trauma, depression, and daddy issues. The story's initial pretensions at high-minded political cloak and dagger stuff just fall flat in their face in light of everything on our real-world news. Russian super soldiers in service of the USA? Impeachment being at all relevant? Government secrets actually remaining something of a secret? That's how we know we're in comic book land, folks.
If you're gonna hire Machete to kill the bad guy, you better make damn sure the bad guy isn't you.
Not to get on my soapbox or anything. Seriously though, the great performers like Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Lewis Pullman, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, and Hannah John Kamen carry this thing through. They bring forth some pretty fun character dynamics. It's nothing you haven't seen before, but they play the melody right. I especially loved Harbour's portrayal of Alexei Shostakov, or the Red Guardian.
It's your dad! Don't go in the bar!
He steals every scene he's in and manages to bring this beer buddy warmth tinged with the sadness that only an old has-been clinging to past glory can bring. Pugh, as our leading lady Yelena, who is the daughter of a Shostakov, brings this lonely, morose, and angry energy to her character that doesn't devolve into self-parody. She manages to disappear into the character, and plays pretty well with Harbour's personality. Not far behind is Russell, a former hockey player who does a fine job with John Walker/US agent, showing subtle signs of suicidal ideation as he deals with the regret of being a neglectful father. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Kamen as Ghost and Stan as the Winter Soldier. They don't drag down the show or anything, but it is a little disappointing, especially in Stan's case, where I think a lot of people are expecting a lot more out of the return of Bucky Barnes. And Kamen as Ghost does get some chances to show off her phasing and invisibility powers, and that's kind of cool, but as a character, she's really just kind of there to add more quips and provide another sounding board for a few scenes. She plays well with the part she's given, but it's not much of one to speak of. The real surprise, however, is Pullman, who shows off an impressive range, going from bumbling comic relief to something much more deep and wounded. Spoilers ahead for a 3-week-old movie that's been spoiled to death already. Pullman, of course, plays Bob, an American hippie tourist meth head who somehow decided to opt for Malaysia over, say, Cambodia, and got hoodwinked into becoming the Sentry, yet another Marvel super secret human experiment that inevitably goes awry. What makes his character actually interesting is that he's basically weaponized depression. He takes virtually all of our named characters into a literal void of despair and forces them to relive their deepest traumas. Let's be real, Marvel has a track record of lackluster villains. For every Thanos and Killmonger, there's a Dormammu and Ironmonger, who was so forgettable I had to look up his name for this sentence. So kudos to the crew on Thunderbolts for creating a conflict that goes beyond punch the bad guy. Though they still try to punch the bad guy because you gotta have some punching even when the world's been through guys who kill half the universe with a snap of a freaking finger. Come on, Bucky. You of all people should know you gotta back off from this guy.
Nope.
So to have the big bad be such a weirdly intimate one, while still holding so much internalized pain of his own, is, if nothing else, unique to this franchise, if not superhero movies as a whole. Batman Mask the Phantasm went to some pretty similar territory way back in 1983, if not quite to this psychological level, at least a comparable amount of pathos.
I
know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
Even more recently, we had Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with its incredibly moving Rocky Raccoon subplot, and I can't believe I can say that with a straight face. It doesn't quite reach the levels of Guardians 3, but at least I still remember this guy days after seeing the movie, which is more than I could say for contemporaries like Aquaman 2. To be clear, Thunderbolts isn't some sort of second coming. It's not forgettable, but that isn't the same as saying spectacular. Its combative yet charismatic characters and a slightly darker edge do provide some interesting ground for the MCU to build upon if they want to, given that, as you might already know, these are the new Avengers after all, so are they going to go on similar Avenger-scale adventures? I don't know. I can't say I'm holding my breath for it, but I do wonder the upcoming Fantastic Four will play some similar family trauma dynamics, and maybe they can all go to group therapy together or something. Worth watching, but probably best saved for streaming, even with the IMAX. Also, the cinematography really wasn't as dark as I heard. I mean, it was certainly grungier than your typical MCU flick, but I could see things. It was fine. Thank you all for watching to the end. I know I'm really quite behind this one. Sorry, real life got in my way, but I still wanted to say my piece. And likewise, I would love to hear your takes on this. What do you think of Thunderbolts? Am I missing something? Is this actually a bigger deal than it seems? Or is it just another also ran? In any case, have a lovely rest of your day, and peace.